Welcome to the HFMA Talk podcast, the podcast for NHS Finance. I'm Alex Hunt, Content and Social Media Executive at the HFMA. In today's episode, I sit down with the winner of the HFMA Rising Star Award in 2024, Sofiya Khan-Ringshaw. Sofiya is a costing analyst at North East London Foundation Trust, the London Student Finance Chair and Chair of the HFMA Next Gen Committee. From championing student and staff development to mentoring colleagues and automating costing processes, she's shown what's possible when passion and purpose come together. Her journey into NHS finance started during the pandemic, and while it wasn't the path she originally planned, it's one she embraced with determination, creativity and heart. Today, we'll hear how she's overcome early challenges, what drives her, and why she's so committed to helping others rise through the ranks too. This episode will resonate with everyone in NHS finance, but especially with our band's 2 to 6 members who may be starting out and wondering how to build a fulfilling, recognised career. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Sofiya Khan-Ringshaw. Hello and welcome to the show, Sofiya.
Hello, Alex. Nice to be here.
Good, I'm glad. To start, can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far in NHS finance? How did you get started and what brought you to your current role as a costing analyst?
Well, I started in the NHS 3.5 years ago, not necessarily unexpectedly, but I didn't anticipate working so soon. Even though I'd always wanted to. I remember being about 10 years old, coming out of my mum's Honda Civic, being dropped home from primary school, putting on her heels and walking from the car to the porch and saying to her, "Mummy, I can't wait to go to work." And she looked at me and she just laughed and she said, "You wait until you're about 21 and you finish university and you have to start an actual job. You're not going to say that." And 8 years on from that, I was starting my first job in August 2021 as a finance apprentice. I didn't necessarily expect to go into the NHS, but I think after COVID and the way in which I saw so many people were affected and how the NHS had brought everyone together, I wanted to be a part of something like that. I've always really enjoyed maths and I've always enjoyed things where logic is involved. And I didn't expect to gravitate towards finance. My dad's an accountant as well, but I'd always shied away from that because I'm also extremely creative too. You've probably seen before that I've mentioned that I used to dance a lot. I was in theatre school for a very long time. I absolutely love art. I loved English, history, music. Music is something that I absolutely adore. I collect vinyls. So yeah, no, I'm a vinyl collector. I'm very, very proud of my collections that I've got going so far. So I didn't expect to land in finance, especially with all the stereotypes around the finance community. But when I'd seen that there was an apprenticeship post advertised at NELF, the organisation that I work in, I thought I might as well give it a go and do something that's different to everyone else. And even though I was 15, online learning during the peak of the pandemic, I thought that why not stretch yourself even more and do something even more outside the box, even though I'm in a situation right now, which is something that was completely unexpected. And luckily it paid off.
So you started studying in 2021 for this role?
No, so I finished my GCSEs in May of 2021. And then I had my interview after I finished completing them in about, I think it was the beginning of June. I had COVID during my interview, so I had to do it online. It was my first ever interview that I'd done, like a proper interview. I had COVID and I was not expecting to actually get the role because I thought I'd performed poorly, even though that wasn't the feedback that I got. And then I started working in August. So pretty much I was fresh, like I'd been 16 for about 4 months, and then I started working straight away.
Wow. So what was that like, stepping straight from school into NHS finance, especially at like such a challenging time?
Overwhelming. I think a lot of people don't expect to find their footing. I think people expect to find their footing actually quite quickly, and it's something that I thought, oh, I'm going to be a natural at. But I think a lot of people overlook coming from a full-time learning environment, like being in secondary school, like secondary school specifically, everything's regimented. You're told when to eat, you're told when to go to lessons, when you can talk, when you can't talk, when you go to the toilet. Everything is very, very regimented to being in an environment where you have the freedom to say to your manager, oh, I'm going to work from home today. I don't fancy coming in because I'm not feeling very well. Or I'm just going to go to lunch now. And you have this whole new world of freedom, but it also comes with a lot more responsibility. And having that responsibility seemed like such a big thing at the time for me. I didn't think that I was actually going to stay at one point. I have mentioned that before in previous talks I've given. I got to like the first 2 months and I just thought, wow, I'm really not getting it. Like my friends had all started sixth form and they were all together and they were having the best time because it was year 12 and everything at the beginning of year 12 was just like learning on new subjects and getting to know new teachers. And I was in an environment where I felt like I was completely out of my depth. I had very poor Excel skills. Like obviously my math skills were good, but I feel like the misconception with finance is that everything is maths based because it wasn't. A lot of it is common sense and computer based. And I remember thinking like I'm just not getting it. Like I don't understand the NHS language. I don't understand why I'm doing this. I have no financial background. Like I'm never going to be good at this. I might as well go back to school. And I remember speaking to my mum about it and being really upset. And I remember her saying to me, look, if you feel that way in the next 2 months or so after this, then we'll arrange for you to go back to school. Like you'll have to sit at year 12 the year after, and and if it will make you happy, then do it. But don't give up now. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to try. I'm going to give it my best shot, my best go. I'm going to try and develop, try and speak to my managers, try and get a mentor and put myself on the right path so I can say to myself, if it comes to an end, that I tried absolutely everything. And out of nowhere, one day I was in the middle of doing this task. I believe it was something on transport, like one of the central tasks, and everything just clicked. It all made sense. And after that point, I remember thinking, I'm so glad, I'm so grateful that someone said to me just to stick at it, because if I hadn't, then we wouldn't be here right now having this conversation.
So how did you find that kind of perseverance? Was it just through having a strong support network?
No, I think like to persevere, you have to have small term goals. You can't just be thinking about, okay, this is the long term. I think for me, I've always thought that having little goals as well as having a final destination is pretty much even more important to meet those little markers, because otherwise like that seems the end goal, the penultimate seems so far away. So I set myself little goals. So okay, today I'm going to make sure that I do this task completely right, or I'm going to try and stick to this deadline. I'm going to speak to this manager about learning this new tool on Excel. So I set those mini goals and I went online and I researched and I did some NHS research. I spoke to people who had like a wide breadth of experience with NHS knowledge on the NHS. So I could gather some further information on what like the role that I was in and the organization as a whole, because I think that is also something that a lot of people find difficult coming to the NHS. They think this is an organization, it's very internal. They forget that the NHS is so big and it's so yeah. No,
so you are now a costing analyst. You've spoken prior to being overwhelmed. How are you balancing those roles within the NHS, and how has that kind of helped shape your experience?
To be honest, I fell into the role of London Student Finance Chair. My old manager, he used to be London Student Finance Chair, but he stepped down. And I remember thinking when I joined, like pretty much quite quickly on, and which also helped me persevere, was my involvement with students and my involvement with apprentices. And anything that anyone had ever said to me about going in and becoming an apprentice had fueled my fire a lot. When I like in school, I remember I remember speaking to a teacher and her saying to me, "Oh, don't be an apprentice. That's not for you." You're meant to go to university. You're one of the people who's meant to go to university. Apprenticeships aren't for people like you. And I remember thinking, what does that mean? And being quite confused by it and realizing that she was stereotyping and putting apprentices in a place where people who go for them have less intellect. And I think that is completely bang out of order, not the case at all. Especially you can see the stark difference from 3, 4 years ago now when I did my apprenticeship to where they are now and how quickly that they've elevated. And I remember someone saying to me in my maths class, I remember so clearly this person saying to me, don't do an apprenticeship, Sophie. If you do an apprenticeship and me and you go for the same job in the future, I'll get it over you because you were just an apprentice and you'll have no qualification from it. So all those things they fueled my fire, and that's what got me into being the London Student Finance Chair, becoming joining part of the HFMA and having that passion to talk about the student experience and apprenticeships and band 2 to 6s, and it's all almost bled into one. And it's just little things like that, they stick with you, but they don't, for me, they don't cause resentment. They just add fuel to my fire, and they make me want to make a positive impact for someone who could potentially be like me, hearing things like that. So they know that there is possibility to grow and develop, and it's definitely something that's helped me and allowed me to go through all the different roles that I've gone into. I think I've done about two interviews a year, every single year that I've been working in the NHS, because for me, I'm someone who doesn't like to sit still. I like to do everything. Yeah. Projects, all sorts.
Well, if I can add my place in all of this, I will say, as somebody who's done a degree and done an apprenticeship, obviously a very completely different field, but I've always found that the apprenticeship opened more doors for me than the degree has so far. So you mentioned there that you are a member of the HFMA bands 2 to 6 community. You're a very active member of that community. What encouraged you to get involved in that network?
I think a lot of the development groups, they almost bleed into one, if I'm being completely honest, and which I think is great because there's so much overlap. I think I went from speaking to Satiris, who runs the SDN in London and who's been a humongous help to me in setting up the London Student Finance Network. And then he introduced me to the HFMA London branch. And then on the London branch, that led to the national 2 to 6 group, which is now HFMA Next Gen. And it's very beautiful because it's like this huge web of development and creativity and ideas and networking and people just passing on their little shreds of wisdom. And it's just in this huge amalgamation, especially for junior staff. I think it's great in this whole mixing pot to just pluck and pick the best bits of it. I went out the other day with my mates and we were talking about the best piece of advice that we've ever received. And I said to them, I went to a talk in London a couple months back, completely off my own back. I saw the ticket online and it was from someone called Bazoma St. John. And she is like a huge corporate influence in America. She used to work for Pepsi. She worked for Uber. She was the creative director at Netflix. So it was amazing. And she said this one phrase, carpe omnia. So a lot of people know carpe diem, which is seize the day. But carpe omnia means to pluck in abundance. So to pluck all the things that you have on offer to you, but with intention, and to try and see experiences and see development opportunities, and be mindful and be critical with the way that you think, as well as using every opportunity to your advantage. So that's what I would say the band 2 to 6 community means to me, but also an environment that I've tried to foster being chair of HFMA Next Gen.
And what do you think are some of the biggest benefits of being part of that network in your career so far?
I think, as I've mentioned, it's exposure. I think it's exposure to the wider NHS function. It's very easy to see your organisation at a very insular level when you're first starting up and just thinking, okay, I'm in this environment. Like this is my organisation is the only place for me. Like this is the buck ends here, but it doesn't. You have systems and you have regions, and we all link together and we come together as this huge community. So I think for me, it's given me the opportunity to meet loads of people and to learn. I think it's one thing to network, but I think you need to learn from your network. That's the step further. I think that as well is it's given me an opportunity to grow as well as a person, to grow my confidence, especially being able to have a community of people to come to, but as well as leader committee at a national level has been something that's been not necessarily out of my comfort zone, but it has stretched it definitely. And I think that it's just important for everyone to know that there is that backbone there. I think a lot of people think development is for people who are trying to go to highest heights, but I think you might not even necessarily want to go to highest heights right now. But as long as you're stretching yourself within the role that you're in or within the profession that you're in, whether that be soft skill development or technical or knowledge based or behavioral, they're all super important to continue development and growth.
The other week, you got to chair the final day of the members' summer series. What was that like, and did you enjoy the experience of facilitating a day of sessions to our Bands 2 to 6 community?
It was great to be able to join the summer series. Unexpected, yes, it definitely was. Because I think a couple of weeks prior, I'd agreed to do it. It was lovely though to do it because it was right in the middle of my busy period. But I was able to take the morning, have a bit of a reset. I'd just come back off holiday. So it was nice to have a period of time to just listen to the speakers. They were all amazing. Some were technical. We had the inspirational speaker from Jordan Schwarzenberger, who was great. And we had the mindfulness. And it was just a great combination. And it made like events like that make me want to do more events, and it just gets me more comfortable speaking. And for me, like I really enjoy doing any sort of event, whether it's face to face or it's online, just getting out there and meeting new people and speaking to them and picking their knowledge, I would say, carpe omniering them and seeing what I can learn in those sorts of environments.
Brilliant. I'd love to talk a little bit about the HFMA Rising Star Award, which is an award that you won last year in 2024. So congratulations on that. How did it feel to be recognised in that way?
It was completely surreal. I remember all of that day, I felt queasy, absolutely queasy. I felt so sick. And I was so nervous. But I think when Mark called my name, it was almost like it was a blur, completely blacked out. My whole table was full of people from my organization and people who I'd worked with, absolutely erupted. And I think they saw before I saw. And I was hit with this wave of like shock, relief, confusion, excitement. It was a whirlwind. And it was amazing. And it's something that I think I will never, ever forget, especially because the year before was the first time that I'd actually gone to the national conference. I got one of the free tickets from ONF. And I remember thinking, going to the gala dinner, one day I'm going to do something that is that good. And I'm going to get up on that stage and I'm going to make it happen. Come hell or high water, I'm going to be on that stage because I've done something that means something to people. And then a year later, and I was so overwhelmed with pride. It was amazing. I texted my mom, called my dad. It was great. It was amazing. It was a very, very, very good evening.
Amazing. You work fast.
Yes. Yes, I do.
You mentioned in your interview with the Healthcare Finance magazine that none of what you've done has been about winning awards. But I wondered, why do you think it is important that people do get recognised for the work that they do?
I think recognition, it's so important for staff. Morale, so important. Praise, so important, especially in the times that we're in right now. Being someone who's in junior bandage, I think people forget that. It is so important to have praise at the beginning and at the end. Like you want to have, as I said, little goals to work towards, little things to look forward to. you don't want to be thinking, oh, I'm band 2 right now. I'm never going to get to be a band 8A. I'm never going to get to be a VSM or a CFO. It's a million miles away. I'm not going to think about that now. And then you get into these little habits, which are bad habits, and they don't necessarily foster good development and planning and career progression. So I think having awards just allows staff and just people in general just to feel like what they're doing is good. And I think sometimes that is just enough, especially in the times that we're in the times of change, especially within the NHS. These things need to happen more. People need to feel like they're being uplifted more and they want to come in more and they want to work more, because otherwise we're going to be in an environment where people don't want to be here, unfortunately, and we want to make sure that people feel like they are supported.
When it came to your work that you won the award for, what do you think it was about that and your contribution that stood out to the judges?
I think for me, I would say I have done a lot in the development community specifically. I have done a lot in the development community. I mentor, I speak at events, I chair my network, I work actively within my branch and within the national group. But I think after I read the submission, and it's something that I'm very open about, which I don't necessarily mention a lot, but I do have a lot of I have had a lot of challenges in my career earlier on, but also I do represent a lot of minority groups, and I think that there's a lot of sometimes there is some underrepresentation just in general, and I think people could see that I tried to use my platform to foster an environment for band 2 to 6s, people who come from minority groups and have protected characteristics, to uplift them and give them the space to be able to develop and to be able to grasp with two hands and say, this is what I want and I'm going to make it happen. And I think that's what my managers and my team, they spoke about. They spoke about me being biracial and neurodivergent, young and a female, and coming into finance with someone who at the beginning who was very trepidatious, but who's ended up on the other side completely changed and is becoming someone who's able to lead a group of people, who's able to stand up in front of 150 people and deliver a talk, which is not something which I would have been able to say at the beginning. And it's almost just a reminder, I think, to people that it's not about your protected characteristics. It's not about where you start at the beginning. It's not about what has happened to you. It's about what you make from that. And I think something that I like to say to the people I mentor, that it's the transformation from adversity to advantage that makes a person exceptional. So to not focus on the disadvantages and to just push forward. And it's hard, it is very difficult, but to push forward and persevere and strive and grip everything that you can, and to try and achieve the things that you don't think are possible, but you make them possible.
Well put. Now, we were only about 6-7 months out from you winning the award, but I wondered, has it made any difference in your career or just kind of personally, maybe in your confidence?
I think that my confidence after it has grown in some aspects, but maybe not even grown. I feel like it has given me reassurance that I'm on the right track. It's more reassurance, and it's made me feel more confident in what I'm doing, if that makes sense. It makes me feel more confident in everything that I represent, that I'm on the right path and that I am actually making a difference. Because it is easy to think, oh, well, I'm doing all these little things, but I'm not sure if I'm reaching anyone or whether they are actually helpful, whether people do feel like they're growing and they're developing. But I think that will eventually will have a knock-on effect on my career, because I think having the reassurance and having those little bits of confidence build up and build up and build up just make you feel so much better about what you're doing, and then you grow and you develop, and hopefully in years to come, whatever comes next, it just continue to shine through and just build and build and build.
So would you encourage others to nominate their colleagues or maybe even themselves for the 2025 awards where the nominations have just opened? Do you have any advice on that?
Yes, I would say apply now, sign up now, make time to celebrate. We need to be making time to celebrate just as much as we are making time to stress and to work hard. We need to make time to celebrate ourselves and celebrate our teams and the special individuals that we have that make the day easier for us and that inspire us, even if it's in the small ways. I think I would say apply, apply, apply.
So you've mentioned throughout this conversation about the different kind of short-term goals that you write for yourself and you achieve. Do you have any long-term ambitions for your career in NHS finance?
I do. Anyone who knows me knows I am like I have a 5-year plan, I have a 10-year plan. Everyone jokes about it just because I am very anal about my plans and my organization. Like I have to, for me, I have to be very organized because I have my fingers in all the pies. But I have by my bed, I have a weekly, monthly plan. So exercise, revision, walks, washing, all of that stuff next to my bed. And then on the other side of that, I have a 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and what I want. And I have an idea of what I want to achieve in the next couple years or so, 5 years or so. I definitely want to be ACCA qualified or have my CCAB in one of the professional qualifications. I do want to get exposure in management accounts, business partnering, potentially in a different organization at some point. That's maybe in a queue or a commissioner. But I do want to be a capital accountant, and it may not sound like a lot to me or you right now, but from what I know, there is such little. There's not many financial accountants that are females who are from biracial backgrounds that I've ever met. I've never met any. I feel like it would be great to open up that window. Even finding financial accountants that are female is very, very rare. I feel like having that experience and maybe opening the door for a new generation to step into their own power would be brilliant and amazing. And I feel like that is something that I would be really interested in doing and starting.
Brilliant. And then for anybody who's listening who maybe isn't a member of the HFMA yet, what would you say to them? Would you encourage them to join?
I would, and if they hadn't, I'd say, why not the HFMA? Why not the HFMA? And I think sometimes when I speak to colleagues, it's great to pick their brains about what they think and almost debunk like, oh, development's not for me, like I'm not looking to grow right now in my career, I'm happy where I am. There's something that we are starting to foster in the HFMA Next Gen group, the Band 2 to 6 group, and that is the rock stars and superstars concept, which was brought about by the Eastern Branch, by Linda and Martha, who brought it to our committee. And we discussed it in our last meeting. And it's the idea comes from Radical Candor, and it's about, which is a book, and that's about growth and development. And in an organization, you have your rock stars who are your heroes who help you get through like the tough times. They've been there for a long time. They're not necessarily looking to grow, but you couldn't get through your day to day without them. And then you have your superstars who are jumping from the heights of heights, and they're trying new things, and they're growing and they're developing, and they're wanting to jump consistently. So you have those two different types of development which capture almost everyone within an organization, and specifically capture everyone within the Band 2 to 6 community. So I would say to them that your development is important, and it is even more important to continue to grow. There's a difference between comfort and enjoyment. And for me, I always think that when I get comfortable, it's time to move on and do something next, do the next thing. You might have a certain level of discomfort within your role but I think that comes from growth. And as long as I feel like I'm growing and I'm stretching myself, I know I'm in the right place right now. And the minute I feel like I've stopped, I like to move on to the next challenge. And for me, I find a lot of enjoyment in that and fulfillment. And I think initially when I came into the NHS, that growth felt like pain and torture. Because I hadn't realized that it was growth. I thought it was just complete discomfort and that I wasn't in the right place, but I was. I was just growing as a person. I was growing as a finance professional. And then I realized that in the times that I do feel like that, I need to turn that into a learning opportunity, and I need to find enjoyment out of it, because if I am going to go to the places that I want to go to and reach the heights that I want to go to, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, and that is just the case.
Brilliant. And you have kind of dropped many different golden nuggets of advice throughout the interview. But I will just say, I will just ask one last kind of time, for anyone starting their career in NHS finance and wondering how to make a difference, what's the one piece of advice you'd want them to take away from your story?
Run to each and every opportunity, not away from the fear of failure. I think that is something that I came up with on a random Tuesday, just on a walk, maybe even on the train. And I feel like it is so poignant to absolutely anyone and everyone who is doing anything at any age. I think it is something that it's a way of life, and it's something that I try to follow, and I try to preach to the people that I care about and to the people who I think have potential.
And then finally, to kind of end the conversation on a bit of a more kind of personal get to know you note, I thought we'd have a little bit of a quick fire round and just
Brilliant.
ask you some kind of quick fire questions. So, first question, what were you immediately doing before this conversation?
I was preparing some documents for the NCC submission, which is the National Cost Collection. And I was having a chat with my colleague about this and preparing for it. So nothing crazy, nothing crazy at all. Listening to music actually whilst doing my submission, because that's one of my favorite things to do.
Nice. Who are you listening to?
Let me have a look. Who was I listening to? I'm a huge Billie Holiday fan. I'm a huge Amy Winehouse fan. I also love Brent Faiyaz. These are going to sound like such random names. My music taste is very varied and all over the place. Like I went to see an
Sure.
opera on Saturday, so I love absolutely everything. I love jazz. I love pop. I love R&B. I love indie rock, like Oasis. So I'm a big. I've seen a lot of music this year, actually. I've seen Ray. I've seen a couple gems of people which have been brilliant.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Next question, tea or coffee?
Iced coffee in the summer,
Sure.
proper English breakfast in the winter.
That's a very diplomatic answer there. What was the last book you read?
It was The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Not cover to cover yet. I'm still in the midst of reading it. Someone who has dyslexia, especially the type of dyslexia that I have, I find it takes me so long to read, and I found it so difficult growing up to read. My sister absolutely loves to read. My mum loves to read, and they absolute bookworms. But me and my dad, we have never liked it. But what I used to do when my mum used to make me read was I used to put my Sudoku book behind it, and I used to do Sudoku instead. But I do a lot of Sudoku, but I am trying to read more and more. But the last book that I read cover to cover was Normal People, and that changed my life.
Yeah, I recently read that about 2 months ago, and yeah, absolutely beautiful book.
Yeah,
Yeah, incredible,
yeah.
incredible.
And they have the BBC show as well. They've got the show on BBC, which was great. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did.
I know I'm making my way through it now, and I love it because it's very, very close to the book, but it's almost too close where I'm going through all the same. I'm going through all the same emotions again. I don't know if I can put myself through this.
Yeah, honestly, it was that book I read in I think 3 days, and for me that is a record time. I never think I'll beat that again. It like I had a headache consistently every night, but I went and I was like, no, I need to get through this. I need to know what's happened. It was such an emotional journey of a book.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And finally, what's your dream holiday destination?
I love to travel. I love going absolutely everywhere and anywhere. I would say I'd love to take a month off work one day, or a sabbatical, or in a gap between employment, and I'd love to do a tour of like Eastern Asia, but as well as like old Asia, so like Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Thailand. I'd love to go to Thailand. I know so many people who've been to Thailand and they've absolutely loved it. But then I'd love to go to Tokyo, and I'd love to go to I'd love to go all over Japan and go to Okinawa. So many amazing places to visit in this world. I'd love to go to Bali, but I would not want to get Bali belly. I've seen so many people get Bali belly. I would not want to be so ill on holiday.
That is the risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today, sharing insights into your journey, advice on how you won the Rising Star Award, and kind of your takeaways from that, and what you're hoping to do next in the future. So hopefully that's been some really great insights for our audience there. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope to come again soon.
Thank you to Sofiya again for sharing her insights into her journey so far. If you've been inspired by her story, it's worth knowing that nominations for the HFMA Awards are now open and will remain open until the 3rd of October 2025. The awards are a fantastic opportunity to recognise and celebrate the outstanding work happening across NHS finance teams and individuals right across the UK. Any shortlisted nominations will receive a free ticket to the gala dinner at the HFMA annual conference in London, where the winners will be announced. So if someone in your team or yourself is making a real difference, now's the time to share that story. You can find all the details and the nomination form in the show notes. That's it for this week's episode of HFMA Talk. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to leave a 5-star rating on your favourite podcast platform. See you next time.